Black Myth Wukong is way harder than they wanted you to know about. There is a reason why they limited what people were allowed to say. There is a reason why information was so hard to come by. There is a reason why they did the global release. There is a reason why they were so adamant that it wasn't a Souls-like. I'm sorry, but it is a Souls-like. That doesn't make it a bad game. We're not talking about the quality of the game in this video. We are just trying to be realistic about what the game actually is versus what they said it is. Because here's the thing, right? When you label something as Souls-like, you immediately remove a lot of the people that could potentially buy your game. Because the majority of regular people, casual gamers, normal people don't want to struggle in their games. They want to turn a game on, turn their brain off, and sit there and just lose some hours relaxing and having fun. And to the majority of regular people out there, rather than masochists like me that love Souls, the idea of struggling in a game is just not something they want to do. So they pushed very hard to be like, this is not a Souls-like, it's a pretty easy game. And I just don't find that to be true at all. Today, right, okay, so as I record this video, it is 2 o'clock in the morning. I've just got off a 12-hour shift playing Wukong. The game has not even been out for 24 hours yet. I'd say I'm well over halfway through the game, and it has been hard, and I am a Souls veteran. I've been playing Dark Souls and all of the Souls games for over a decade. This year alone, I've beaten all the Souls games 3 times. Another Crab's Treasure, Lies of P, Sekiro, Bloodborne, name a hard game, I've done it, right? Wukong is a difficult game. It is not the sort of game that a casual player is going to enjoy. It is not the sort of person that hears Souls-like, I don't like those, maybe I'll like this. If you're somebody that's umming and ahhing over whether or not you'll like Wukong because you're the sort of person that does not like difficult games, I truly don't think you're going to like this. I really think this might be a bit of a Sifu situation where when Sifu released, it was a really hard game. Everybody knew it was a hard game, they didn't lie, they didn't try and convince you otherwise. However, down the line they introduced accessibility settings to the point where I'm pretty sure now there is a button that you can click and turn yourself invincible. And I'm willing to bet that at some point down the line they're going to do this with Wukong, where there will be a difficulty selector, there'll be something to make it easier because they wanted it to be more accessible. Or did they actually want it to be more accessible, or did they just want to sell more? I think that's truly what's gone on here. Wukong is not the sort of game that your average casual player is going to beat. Think about how Elden Ring went really, really mainstream. Way more mainstream than any of the Souls game ever did, right? And I'm pretty sure that the very first boss in that game's trophy that pops when you defeat him has got like a 1 in 3 completion ratio. Something like 60% of people that started Elden Ring never made it past the first boss. That's because the vast majority of people that ever play games ever are normal, casual players that don't want to struggle. If you guys are watching this video right now, you are not the normal casual player. You're somebody that's passionate enough about games to be watching games in your extracurricular time. You are already beyond the casual player. I truly believe that they did everything in their power to try to maximize the amount of sales on day one because they wanted it to be not known how difficult this game was going to be. And again, it isn't talking about the quality of the game, although there has been issues there. Later on today, you guys will see my part 1 of my playthrough goes up, and it's the first half of the game. The video is a little bit over 2 hours long. I record instances in that where bosses are fully not hittable and you can't dodge left or right because they are able to move in an area larger than the playable area that you're able to move within. And because they have a much larger weapon than you, they can hit you, you can't hit them sometimes. That happens. That is the sort of thing that I expect to be patched, hopefully, but that is something that happens in this game. Whether or not you like it or not, whether or not you deem it to be a determinant or factor as to the quality of a game, this is a Souls-like. There is no question about that. This is closer to a Souls game than it is to any hack and slash game. You cannot compare this to a hack and slash game. In my opinion, a hack and slash game is the sort of game where you don't really need to be paying too much attention to what the enemy is doing, because as long as you are mashing the buttons and doing the combos, you will end up winning. In this game, if you just try and spam attack, you will get comboed and put down fast by just about every boss in the game. A lot of the things that make a Souls game are present here. You've got a lot of people are like, just because it has bosses doesn't make it a Souls game. No, but I'll tell you what does. 1. Bonfires. Respawnable enemies when you rest at a bonfire. Limited amounts of heals that are set in stone that refresh every time you die or rest at a bonfire. That comes through a flask. What else? It's got the leveling system from Sekiro, where you build up your level, and if you die, I believe that you lose some of that level, but not anything beyond. So, for example, once the bar fills up all the way, you get your skill point. Doesn't matter if you die, you keep your skill point. That's Sekiro's leveling system. This is a game where you have to pay attention to your stamina meter because that'll determine whether or not you're capable of continuing to fight. That is a very Souls thing. Again, I feel like the only reason that they wanted to detach themselves from the Souls name so hard is so that they make more money, so that the game sells better. Because again, casual players, they don't want anything to do with a Souls game. But here's the thing, right? They have also created themselves the ultimate defense. Because games are getting so expensive to the point where the majority of younger generations don't tend to get many games per year. Hell, when I was a kid, we didn't get many games per year. It was like birthdays and Christmas. That was the way the things were. But games have gotten so expensive now that I would be willing to bet it's even worse, right? And that means that when somebody commits to spending an amount of money on a game, they have to like it, whether or not they like it that much or not. And a lot of the time on social media, they will defend that game as if it was their entire personality. And when a studio can cultivate that sort of mindset in an audience to defend them even before the game is out, which is what was happening here, it creates this sort of impenetrable shield where they can be like, oh yeah, but look at this. No, look at this. So for example, what will have already happened with some people with Wukong is there'll be a split, right? There'll be the majority who will be silent because they're not the sort of people that complain on the internet, that will start this game, play for an hour, realise it's hard, and be like, I've wasted £65. But then there will also be the louder minority that they enjoy these difficult games. They are people that have played many of the Souls-like games, many difficult games, that will smash their head against that brick wall until that brick wall falls over and they get that little dopamine hit for the boss dropping. But then they also have to then go out of their way to tell everybody that they did that and downplay the difficulty of the game by talking about, oh, it's not harder than this, it's not harder than that, because it makes them sound better on the internet, when in reality, it is a hard game. It is unquestionably... Black Myth Wukong is a difficult game, trust me. Like I said, if you are even somebody that is slightly, on the fence as to whether or not it's going to be too hard for you, it probably is going to be too hard for you. But I'm willing to bet that at some point down the line, they introduce some options to try to change that. I would imagine so. If they don't, it would almost be disingenuous because of the fact that they've tried to market it as something that is actually accessible to people, but I truly don't think that it is. I think to the majority of people, if you don't like a Soulsborne game, you are probably not making it past Chapter 2. Almost definitely not. I think it's interesting. I've been looking on Reddit to see if anyone shares the same sentiment, and there's one Reddit on one thread on the Wukong subreddit that's got like 100 comments of a lot of people echoing the same thing, where their idea of fun is not bashing their head against the boss 10 times before the boss drops, or even worse, 20 times. Their idea of fun is they'll first try the boss, experience some story, and move on. This is not that sort of game. It really isn't. This is very much so a boss rush game. There isn't too much in terms of narrative going on. You are a silent protagonist. You're just sort of spoken at in sort of mythical terms by mythical creatures that you encounter throughout the game. And here's the thing, right, is a lot of the online discourse is going to be over whether or not it is or isn't a Souls-like. But regardless of whether it is categorized as such, it doesn't matter. It is the sort of game that if you do not like Souls-likes, even if this isn't one, you're not going to like it. You're just not. Or at least, if you're umming and ahhing over it, I wouldn't be somebody that goes out and pays full price for it. Not while it's still like 65 quid or whatever the hell the game is. I'm willing to bet that this is going to be the sort of game that in a few years will be on PlayStation Plus, or it'll come down to 30 quid in a year or so. These sort of standalone developer games kind of tend to do that. But again, I do think it's a bit disingenuous the way that they appear to have gone about it with the whole marketing the game as accessible and not that hard, and also with everything they did was, it feels like, is to hide the fact that it is harder than they wanted to let on. It's why they made everybody play it at the same time, because if one place had got it 12 hours prior to someone else, there'd have been a lot of footage out there so that they could be like, oh Christ, that's what it's really like. Okay, maybe I won't play it. But again, because of the synchronized global release, that didn't happen. Because of the fact that people who did get the game early were not allowed to show footage beyond a certain point, and again, is just another thing, you know. It's never... Strict embargoes like that can sometimes be red flags. And again, another little bit of protection they're going to have over the discourse like this is that there is going to be a big portion of the internet that struggles with comprehension, because there always is, especially on TikTok. And with that means that the people are going to be discussing, where people are going to take it to mean that Black Myth Wukong is a Souls-like is going to feel synonymous in their heads as Black Myth Wukong is a bad game. That's not what we're saying here. It's a hard game. It's a decent game. I preferred Lies of P, to be fair. Especially now I'm encountering some seemingly buggy boss fights towards the middle of the game. I'm getting rather bothered. You're going to see me rather lose me rag in my 2-hour-long playthrough video that goes up later today. If you're going to be a Souls-like, be proud of it, you know? The Souls games, while not mainstream until Elden Ring, are still renowned for being some of the best games out there. But again, the problem is that you label something a Souls-like and now it's not going to sell as well. That's how that works, because except for Elden Ring being the anomaly. Elden Ring blew the sales of the rest of the franchise out the water. Hard games are not accessible, it's not what the majority want. There is a reason why games like Minecraft and Roblox and all of your very standard, very family-friendly, very easy games sell so well. It's because it's what the majority are after. So yeah, this video is not to discuss the quality of the game itself, just merely the difficulty as perceived by what they put out there in the marketing and what they wanted to convince people the difficulty of the game was versus the reality of the situation. And I think that it's still so early days. Like I said, the game has not even been out for 24 hours yet, that the majority of the world don't know. Because I saw people on that Reddit thread being like, I played for 6 hours and I'm still on chapter 1, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like you're having a very good time. That sounds like you're struggling. That sounds like you're not winning. And it's not... It's the sort of marketing that, were they honest, the game would have sold worse, you know? So again, if you're on the fence, if you're somebody that doesn't like difficult games, if you're somebody that isn't a fan of the Souls games, I can't imagine that you would like this. Whether or not it is classed as a Souls-like doesn't matter. If you are somebody that categorically doesn't like Souls, this is the sort of game you are probably also going to struggle with. In which case, it's probably not for you, and I hope you take the warning and save some money. Cool. See you in a bit.